Welcome to another Fantasy Goodfellas video where we talk about the top 30 wide receiver rankings for Week 8. You ready?
The Fantasy Goodfellas.
Boom, boom, boom. Rolling on the field.
The Fantasy Goodfellas.
All right, before we get started, let's just take a look at how the rankings fared last week. So if we look at Week 7, Jordan Addison, A.J. Brown, and Josh Downs were your top 3. Then you had people like Cortland Sutton make it, Jackson Smith, Nahigba, Jake Bobo, Rashee Rice, Kendrick Bourne, and Nelson Aguilar, Demario Douglas, and Deontay Johnson filled in some of those spots. And that's important to note because when we do these rankings, you're always looking for those gems and you got to see who's trending. So we're going to get to these lineups for this week. But again, we know that there's a lot of buys, but everybody has up to 3 wide receiver slots per team. That's 48 wide receivers. So we're really looking to see who's in the top 48. All right, let's just get started. At number 1, Tyreek Hill versus the New England Patriots. Tyreek Hill, he only had 88 receiving yards, but did get into the end zone. That was good for the 5th ranked wide receiver. At number 2, you got A.J. Brown at the Washington Commanders. I think the Commanders has fallen apart. A.J. Brown has been spectacular ever since that sideline tirade with Hurts. At number 3, Stephon Diggs versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If we look at Stephon Diggs, I want to look at how many touchdowns he's scored in a row. And he had a game with 3 touchdowns, so that's kind of what his touchdown trend looks like. Number 4, you got Jamar Chase at the San Francisco 49ers. I believe the Bengals were on bye last week, so if you go back to Week 6, he 80 receiving yards. It's a little less than what you expected, but if it was in full PPR, then he had 14 points. Number 5, you have Cooper Kupp at the Dallas Cowboys. This will be an interesting matchup just because Cooper Kupp's going against Dallas. They've been a good defense, but we got to see how things pan out this week. And as Cooper Kupp, is still doing Cooper Kupp things, he's back. They just as a team, he didn't bring it Week 7. Number 6, Keenan Allen versus the Chicago Bears. Keenan Allen, 55 receiving yards. If I want to see what he's done on the season, I'm going to go look for his weekly ranking. He's been in the top 10 for 3 weeks, but that's what it looks like for the season. At number 7, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown versus the Las Vegas Raiders. And again, when I mention these players, it's really to see the trends. If you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, you're going to be playing them regardless of what's going on. It's people like Josh Reynolds who you should really be eyeballing. At number 8, you got Davante Adams at the Detroit Lions. Davante Adams had 57 receiving yards. And you got Adams, you're playing him. At number 9, Puka Nacua at the Dallas Cowboys. Puka has been affected by Cooper Kupp's return. And here you see Puka Nacua had 154 yards and Cooper Kupp. So is it one versus the other? That's going to be something to pay attention to. At number 10, Brandon Ayuk versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Well, as long as Deebo Samuel is not playing, then Brandon Ayuk is going to get the targets. That team didn't look that good, but still, Brandon Ayuk, you're going to be playing him. Number 11, DJ Moore at the Los Angeles Chargers. What did Moore do with the other quarterback? Well, he had 54 receiving yards, but he was targeted 9 times. That's just a lot of targets for only 8 receptions and 54 yards. Number 12, you got Adam Thielen versus the Houston Texans. Adam Thielen has been spectacular of late. Can he continue it? But it looks like Adam Thielen is becoming the number 1 receiver in Carolina. Number 13, you have CeeDee Lamb versus the Los Angeles Rams. This is where you got to go back a couple weeks to see how he's doing. In week 10, 117, and in week 5, 49. So what do we expect for CeeDee Lamb? Not sure. At number 14, you got Jalen Waddle versus the New England Patriots. I don't like New England's defense. Waddle got banged up with his back, but I think he's kind of getting into his groove. He had 6 receptions on 6 targets, 63 yards. That was good for 33rd. At number 15, you got Mike Evans at the Buffalo Bills. What Buffalo Bills team are we going to get? But Mike Evans has 82 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown. That was good for 8th. If you want to see how he's trending on the season, then you're going to go to a weekly ranking. He has been in the top 2 for week 2, and ever since he just cracked the top 10 again this week. I don't expect Mike Evans to have a season like he's had the past 2 seasons. At number 16, Zay Flowers at the Arizona Cardinals. Now, we've been expecting Zay Flowers to kind of light it up, right? And now 75 receiving yards. That was good for 26th. But that's what it looks like there. If we look on his season weekly rankings, that's what he looks like as a team. You know, he's still, we expect more, and hopefully the number 1 target, that would you get a chance to receive more. Number 17, Nico Collins at the Carolina Panthers. Nico Collins was a bright spot. They had a bye, but before the bye, he had 80 receiving yards. If you look at his bar chart, when it comes to points, it seems like it's, you know, every other week, every 2 weeks. So not sure what we're going to expect from Nico this week. Number 18, Jacoby Myers at the Detroit Lions. I think Myers is going to benefit when it comes to Garoppolo returning, but he still was able to score and had 50 receiving yards. At number 19, you got Terry McLaurin versus the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't expect much. I mean, the Eagles were able to nullify what the Dolphins were doing. That's a good defense, good offense. It just seems like they should be well, and don't expect Terry McLaurin to go off. Probably have what Tyreek Hill had, maybe 80 yards with a touchdown. At number 20, Jordan Addison at the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Addison, wow. After being the number 1 receiver in week 7, now he's dropped to 20th. Now, this is where, you know, stats and rankings just don't make sense, right? 123 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and now you're already bumped down to 20th. Shocking. At 21, George Pickens versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Pickens is just able to dominate regardless of what's going on as a team. Even with Deontay Johnson returning, Pickens is still an amazing receiver. Number 22, Garrett Wilson at the New York Giants. Garrett Wilson, he's just a good receiver on that mediocre offense. And I think this is what he's going to do this week, about 90 receiving yards. At number 23, Christian Kirk at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Christian Kirk had a good game. He was able to get into the end zone. That pushed him to the 11th ranked. And what was surprising that week was Calvin Ridley. So already, all of a sudden, you got Christian Kirk bumping up over Calvin Ridley. And Calvin Ridley's tumbling. Number 24, Chris Olave at the Indianapolis Colts. And Chris Olave, with Derek Carr throwing it for 55 times and Olave getting 15 targets, he only managed 57 receiving yards. What is the deal with that? That's not cutting it. At number 25, Calvin Ridley at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, you're going to have 2 receivers so close back to back. I expect Ridley to have a better game than Christian Kirk this week. At number 26, Chris Godwin at the Buffalo Bills. And again, this is where Baker Mayfield's okay, but I doubt that you can see 2 Tampa Bay receivers in the top 30. I think that's a stretch. At number 27, you have Tank Dell at the Carolina Panthers. Now here is another time. You have a young quarterback, and now you have Nico Collins and Tank Dell in your top 30. And I think that's a stretch. And so, especially I think he was maybe injured, coming off that injury, but they got a lot of time. I think it's a stretch. At 28, Amari Cooper at the Seattle Seahawks. And again, Cooper had a subpar week 7, and now they got him in the top 30. And how does that team look? You got P.J. Walker is the starter, and that's not going to bode well for Amari Cooper. And you need Deshaun Watson to return. And number 29, Joshua Palmer versus the Chicago Bears. Palmer had a good game with 133 receiving yards. Can he continue that? It just doesn't seem that there's a lot of offense on that Chargers offense. But Joshua Palmer could be able to get over 100 this week. Number 30, DeAndre Hopkins versus the Atlanta Falcons. This is where I think, I haven't been a big DeAndre Hopkins fan this season. So let's just go look. If you're looking for top 48, right, because you have 3 spots on a 16-team league, he hasn't been there. He hasn't been on there 3 of the 6 weeks. So it's a stretch to see DeAndre Hopkins in the top 30, and that's where I think a name brand always goes higher than trying and gambling on somebody else. That is going to do it for this week on the top 30 wide receivers. I hope this video showed you a little trends, a little stats, and gave you a little idea of who you should start in week 8. All right, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and good luck.
The Fantasy Goodfellas.
Rolling on the field.
The Fantasy Goodfellas.